Most people are reacting right now in every area of their life. Reacting to what their boss said, reacting to what their friend implied, reacting to the message that arrived at the wrong time with the wrong tone, reacting to circumstances they did not see coming because they were not looking, because they were too close, too emotional, too inside the moment to see the shape of what was actually happening around them. This is how most people move through the world, from reaction to reaction. Never ahead, always catching up, always slightly off balance in a way they cannot fully explain. And here is the brutal truth underneath that. The people around them, some of them, are not reacting. They are moving, quietly, deliberately, with a clarity about human nature and social dynamics that most people are never taught and never develop. They see the board differently. They think in longer time frames. They understand motivations that others never bother to examine. They move first, precisely, and by the time the reaction comes, they are already 3 positions ahead of it. Niccolo Machiavelli was one of these people. Not because he was born different, not because he had advantages that others lacked, but because he committed, fully, coldly, without sentimentality, to understanding reality as it actually was, not as people wished it to be, not as society said it should be, as it was. He watched princes rise and collapse. He observed alliances form and fracture. He documented, with the patience of a man who understood that observation was its own form of power, the specific laws that governed why some people stayed ahead while everyone else scrambled to keep up. He wrote those laws down, and today, right now, I am handing them to you. 10 rules. Not philosophy, not motivation, not abstract wisdom dressed up in elegant language. Operational rules, the kind that change how you see every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every decision you face from this moment forward. But understand this before we begin. These rules are not comfortable. Some of them will challenge things you were taught to believe about how the world works. Some will ask you to see people you care about, people you trust, with a clarity that your instinct toward charity will resist. Do not resist it. Clarity is not cruelty. Seeing people accurately is not the same as thinking badly of them. It is simply the refusal to be surprised when human nature behaves exactly like human nature. Ready? 10 steps ahead starts here. Rule 1. Never reveal how much you know. Knowledge is only power if the other person does not know you have it. The moment you show your hand, the moment you reveal the full extent of what you understand, what you have observed, what you have figured out, you surrender the advantage that knowledge gave you. Gone. Immediately. Irreversibly. Most people cannot resist demonstrating their intelligence. It is a need. Deep, socially conditioned, almost biological. The need to be seen as smart, to be recognized as the person who figured it out first, to receive the validation that comes from saying, "I knew that already." That need costs them everything. Machiavelli observed that the prince who reveals his calculations invites his enemies to adjust theirs. The moment your opponent knows how you think, they stop responding to reality and start responding to your model of reality. They feed you what you expect. They move through the gaps your revealed framework cannot see. You become predictable. And predictable, in every arena that matters, is fatal. The discipline is this: know more than you show. Always. In every conversation, in every negotiation, in every relationship where something of consequence is at stake, hold the majority of your understanding in reserve. Let people believe they are operating with more information than you. Let them feel slightly more sophisticated, slightly more aware, slightly ahead. They will relax. And relaxed people show you everything, while you show them nothing. The quiet person in the room who listens more than they speak, who asks careful questions instead of making impressive statements, who leaves every conversation having learned more than they revealed. That is not modesty. That is strategy. Drop in the comments, "I know more than I show." Rule 2. Study incentives, not intentions. People will tell you their intentions endlessly. They are loyal, they are honest, they have your best interests at heart. They want what is good for you. They are on your side. They say this with warmth, with eye contact, with every signal of sincerity that the human face can produce. Ignore it. Not rudely, not visibly, but internally, completely. Because intentions are what people believe about themselves. And what people believe about themselves is almost entirely unreliable as a predictor of how they will actually behave when the circumstances shift. Incentives are different. Incentives are structural. They do not care what someone believes about their own character. They operate below the level of self-awareness and override good intentions with the reliable, ancient logic of self-interest. Machiavelli wrote that a man who neglects what is actually done in favor of what should be done learns his destruction rather than his preservation. He was saying, stop studying what people say they will do. Start studying what the structure of their situation makes it rational for them to do. Ask the question differently. Not, does this person mean well? But, what does this person's situation make it logical for them to do? What do they stand to gain if I succeed? What do they stand to lose? Where does my advancement conflict with their position? Where does my failure benefit them, even if they would never consciously choose it? These are not cynical questions. They are precise ones. The person who means well, but whose incentives point against you, will betray you. Not with malice, but with the quiet, gradual drift of someone following the path that serves them. They will not even recognize it as betrayal. And that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Study the incentives. The intentions will take care of themselves. Drop in the comments, I follow incentives, not promises. Rule 3. Control the frame, or the frame controls you. Every interaction has a frame, an invisible structure that determines who is evaluating who is justifying themselves, who holds the authority in the exchange, who is on trial, and who is the judge. Most people never notice the frame. They simply respond to it. They walk into a conversation already accepting the premise that was set for them, already operating inside a structure that someone else built, and wonder why they keep leaving interactions feeling smaller than when they arrived. The frame was set before you opened your mouth, and you stepped into it. Machiavelli understood that the prince who allows others to define the terms of an engagement has already lost half the battle before a single move is made. The frame is the terms. Whoever sets the terms controls what counts as success, what counts as failure, what questions are legitimate, and what answers are acceptable. Control the frame, and you control the entire interaction. How? You arrive with a reality already established. You do not accept the premise of a question that is designed to put you on the defensive. You redirect to the terrain where you hold the advantage. You do not justify yourself to people who have no legitimate authority to demand justification. You respond from a position, internally, always internally, of someone who is assessing the situation, not being assessed by it. This is not arrogance. This is positioning. The person who enters every room as a student of it, observing, reading, deciding where the power actually lives, holds a frame advantage over everyone who entered performing. Set the frame early. Hold it quietly. Never defend it. Defending a frame concedes that the challenge to it was legitimate. Simply maintain it through your posture, your pacing, your willingness to be silent when others expect noise. They will adjust to you. They always adjust to the person who refuses to adjust first. Drop in the comments, "I set the frame. I do not inherit it." Rule 4. Move in silence. Let the result speak. The announcement is the enemy of the outcome. Every time you tell someone what you are building, what you are planning, what you are about to become, what you are working toward, you are doing two damaging things simultaneously. You are releasing the internal pressure that would have driven you toward the goal, and you are inviting interference. The first one is psychological. When you speak a goal out loud and receive even minimal acknowledgement, even a nod, even a "that sounds great," your brain registers a small dose of completion. The goal feels partially achieved. The urgency quietly drops. The drive that would have carried you through the difficult middle part of the work dissipates into the air with the words you just spoke. You traded momentum for validation. The second one is strategic. The moment you announce what you are building, you give everyone around you the information they need to decide how to respond to it. The ones who feel threatened begin their opposition early, quietly, before you have built enough to withstand it. The ones who want a piece of it begin positioning before you are strong enough to negotiate from power. The ones who will eventually try to take credit begin establishing their proximity to your narrative before the narrative is complete. All of this, all of it, is preventable by saying nothing. Machiavelli was precise about this. He wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. The fox does not announce that it sees the trap, it simply does not step in it. Move in silence, build in the dark, make your mistakes where no one can catalog them. Correct course without the audience that would require you to explain the correction. Arrive at the destination and let the result introduce itself. Results cannot be argued with. Announcements can be dismissed before they become real. The world takes you seriously when you show them something finished, not when you describe something imagined. Work, silently, completely. Let them find out when it is already done. Drop in the comments, "I build in silence. I arrive with proof." Rule 5. Never make a permanent decision from a temporary emotion. This is the rule that will save you from yourself. Because your worst decisions, the ones you will spend years recovering from, the ones that cost you relationships and opportunities and positions that took years to build, were almost certainly made in an emotional state that lasted less than 48 hours. The argument that made you burn the bridge, the moment of pride that made you walk away from something valuable, the fear that made you move too fast, the hurt that made you say the thing that could not be unsaid. Temporary emotion, permanent consequence. Machiavelli watched princes destroy themselves this way more than any other. Not through lack of intelligence, not through bad strategy, through the catastrophic intersection of high emotion and high-stakes decision-making. He wrote that a prince must never act out of passion. Passion blinds. Passion makes you predictable, and predictable in the arena where things actually matter, is the beginning of the end. The discipline here is not suppression. You are not trying to stop feeling. Feeling is information. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. Fear tells you a risk is real. Grief tells you something mattered. These are useful signals, but signals are not commands. The gap between feeling something and acting on it, that gap is where intelligence lives. That is the space where the person who is 10 steps ahead operates. They feel everything. They act from clarity. Build the gap. When something triggers a strong emotional response, especially one that is pushing you toward a significant, potentially irreversible action, stop. Physically, stop. Do not respond. Do not react. Do not make the call, send the message, have the conversation. Wait. Not forever, not passively, actively wait. Think. Examine the emotion. Ask, what is this telling me? Is the action it is pushing me toward one I would endorse in 48 hours? In a week? If the answer is yes, move. If the answer is uncertain, wait longer. The decision that survives the cooling of emotion is the right decision. The one that could only exist inside the heat? Let it burn. Drop in the comments, I decide from clarity, not from heat. Rule 6. Make yourself necessary, not just useful. There is a difference, a critical one. Useful people are everywhere. They are competent, reliable, present. They do what is asked. They deliver what is expected. They fill the role assigned to them with skill and consistency. And they are replaced the moment something slightly better or slightly cheaper comes along. Because useful is a commodity. Necessary is different. The necessary person is not just completing tasks. They are the architecture that holds something together. They are the intelligence that no one else in the room has. They are the relationship that cannot be transferred. They are the perspective that, without them, simply does not exist. You cannot replace necessary. You can only lose it. Machiavelli advised the prince to make himself indispensable, not through servility, not through working harder than everyone else, but through positioning, through becoming the node through which critical information, critical decisions, or critical relationships had to flow. The prince who controlled the node controlled the outcome. And the person who controlled the outcome was the last person anyone removed. Ask yourself honestly, if you disappeared tomorrow from your organization, your circle, your relationships, what specifically would be lost that could not be rebuilt with a replacement? If the answer is unclear, that is your work. Build the thing only you can build. Develop the perspective only your particular combination of experience and intelligence produces. Become the person who sees what everyone else in the room is missing, and who has the judgment to know when to say it and when to hold it. Position yourself at the intersection of things that matter, not at the perimeter of things that are convenient. Useful people are thanked and replaced. Necessary people are protected. Become necessary. Drop in the comments, I build toward necessary, not just useful. Rule 7. Choose your battles like your life depends on it. Because sometimes it does. Every conflict costs something: energy, time, attention, relationship capital, reputation, focus that could have been directed at the thing you are actually building. Every battle you enter, even the ones you win, extracts a price. The amateur does not know this.
The amateur enters every conflict, every slight, every challenge to their position, every opportunity to be right. They fight everything, loudly, consistently, with full commitment, and they wonder why they are exhausted, why they keep winning arguments and losing ground, why they are respected in the moment and undermined in the long run. They have spent themselves on battles that did not matter. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should avoid being hated above all else, not through surrender, but through selectivity. The prince who fights everything signals that he is threatened by everything.
And a man who is threatened by everything does not project power. He projects anxiety. The powerful person does not respond to every provocation. They do not defend against every accusation. They do not rise to every bait that is dangled in front of them. They assess. Is this battle in the territory that actually matters? Does winning here advance the mission or merely satisfy the ego? Does this opponent deserve the dignity of my full engagement, or does acknowledging them elevate them beyond their actual significance? Most battles fail this test. Most provocations are exactly what they appear to be, attempts to pull you off your path, consume your energy, drag you into a terrain where the fight itself is the loss. The person 10 steps ahead walks past most conflicts, not because they are weak, because they are on their way to something, and something does not wait for every distraction you chose to dignify with your attention. Save the full force for the battle that is actually worth it. When that arrives, and it will, fight with everything you have. Until then, walk. Drop in the comments. I choose which battles deserve me. Rule 8. Read the room before you speak into it. Most people enter a room and immediately begin performing. Immediately. Before they have read anything. Before they have assessed the dynamic. Before they understand who holds the real power in the space, what the prevailing mood is, what the unspoken agenda underneath the stated agenda actually is. They just start. And then they wonder why their words land strangely, why the response they got was not the one they expected, why the same approach that works in one context fails completely in another. They did not read the room. They performed into a vacuum and were surprised when the vacuum did not applaud. Machiavelli was an obsessive student of rooms. He spent decades in the most politically charged environments in Renaissance Italy, rooms where a misread could cost you your freedom, your position, your life. He developed a precision for reading the invisible architecture of any group, who deferred to whom, who was performing confidence versus who actually held it, where the tension lived beneath the surface calm. He called this seeing things as they are, not as manners said they should be, not as the stated roles implied, as they actually were. This is the skill. Before you speak, observe. Who is paying attention to whom? Whose comfort does the room seem to organize itself around? Who is performing for whose benefit? Where is the energy in the space? And where is it conspicuously absent? Take 60 seconds. 60 seconds of genuine observation before you open your mouth, before you decide what to say, how to say it, where to direct it, will change the outcome of more conversations than any verbal technique ever could. You are not performing into the room. You are reading it first, and then entering it from the position of someone who understood it before they spoke. That is a power most people in that room will never have. Drop in the comments. I read the room before I enter it. Rule 9. Build leverage before you need it. The worst time to build leverage is when you already need it, when you are desperate, when the job is gone,
The relationship is fracturing, the opportunity is slipping, the position is under threat. Your options contract. The people who might have helped you are now assessing risk. The relationships you neglected are now unavailable. The alternatives you never developed are now absent. You are negotiating from zero. And negotiating from zero, with urgency visible on your face and options missing from your hand, is not negotiating. It is begging with a business vocabulary. Machiavelli wrote that the wise prince prepares in calm times for the storms that will inevitably come. Not reactively, not when the sky is already dark. In the calm, with patience, with the long horizon thinking that separates the person who survives disruption from the person who is destroyed by it. Build leverage now, not because you are planning to use it, not because you distrust the people around you, but because leverage, real, structural leverage, is what gives you the freedom to make decisions based on what is right rather than what you can afford. Leverage is options, the second income stream that means you cannot be controlled by the first, the skill set that makes you valuable beyond the current context, the relationships maintained through genuine investment that exist before you need them, the reputation built through years of consistent delivery that speaks for you when you are not in the room. Every day you spend without building these things is a day the next crisis spends building toward you. The person 10 steps ahead does not wait for the storm. They build the embankment in the sunshine. So when it comes, and it always comes, they are not scrambling. They are choosing. Drop in the comments, I build leverage in the calm. Rule 10. The final rule. Master yourself before everything else. All 9 rules before this one are external. They are about reading people, about positioning, about silence and leverage and frame control and battle selection. They are about the world outside you and how to move through it with intelligence and precision. But here is the truth that Machiavelli saved for last. None of it works. None of it. Not one rule, not one strategy, not one carefully constructed position or deliberately maintained silence or patiently built piece of leverage. None of it works if you have not mastered the thing inside. The thing that reacts before it thinks. The thing that needs approval so badly it will compromise the position. The thing that is afraid of being disliked, of being wrong, of being alone, of being less than, and makes decisions from that fear in the dark and calls them choices in the light. You, unmastered. Machiavelli wrote that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But beneath that observation was a deeper one, that a man who cannot govern himself cannot govern anything. The internal disorder always, always finds its way into external collapse. Through the impulsive decision, through the ego-driven miscalculation, through the fear that made you move too fast or the pride that made you hold too long. The self is the variable everything else depends on. Master it, not through suppression, not through the performance of calm while the interior burns, through actual work, the work of understanding what drives you, what frightens you, what specific vulnerabilities, the need to be right, the hunger for validation, the fear of insignificance, are being exploited by the people around you because you have not yet faced them in yourself. Face them, not once, continuously. Because mastery of the self is not a destination. It is a daily practice, a daily confrontation with the parts of you that would rather react than think, that would rather be liked than be clear, that would rather avoid the difficult thing then face the cost of avoiding it later. The person who is 10 steps ahead of everyone else, they are not smarter. They are not luckier. They are simply further along in the practice of seeing themselves accurately and refusing to let the unexamined parts of their psychology make decisions that their conscious mind then has to survive. Know yourself. Govern yourself. And from that foundation, solid, honest, unflinching, everything else in this framework becomes not just strategy, it becomes natural. The way someone who genuinely sees clearly simply moves, without effort, without performance, without the exhausting, perpetual scramble of someone who is always catching up. 10 steps ahead is not a place you reach. It is a way you become. And it starts, always, only, completely, inside.
Drop in the comments. I govern myself first. Everything else follows. If this shifted something, if one of these rules landed somewhere it needed to land, subscribe, turn on the bell. This is not a content channel. This is a framework, built piece by piece for the person who is done reacting and ready to move. The person who was always 10 steps behind, already gone. Go build the one who sees the board.